busy house. So, well, let's get into what we've got going on. So, presentation at the Chamber of Commerce every year. The mayor does a presentation there for the business community, and so I thought we should probably try to do it in the evening and give people the opportunity that can't be there in the afternoons to come, ask questions, hear what's going on. Unfortunately, CTV5 is recording it, so it'll be on CTV5 and our website, so that'll be great. So, Canby community, we're growing. So we're going to go over, just talk about some of the industrial stuff that's going on in our industrial park, changes downtown, because there's a couple, in case you haven't noticed. Talk about housing, our investment in parks that we've made here this past year and what's coming up with that, and then other fun highlights. So our Canby Industrial Pioneer Park, or Canby Pioneer Industrial Park, I should get that right. So 300 plus acres of zone industrial land, various mixes from heavy industrial down to light industrial. So we've got a lot of development going on right now. We're about 2/3 still vacant based on some of the things that have been kicking around and coming and knocking on our door, which I'll get down to here in a minute. We have the opportunity and possibility of probably filling our park probably within the next 5 to 7 years. That we've got that much traffic that's interested in our industrial park. Right now we've got 14 companies out there with about 1,000 jobs and about a $43 million annual payroll for the city of Canby. We've got 3 companies that right now are under construction, and I'll show those in a second. A couple of leads that are currently looking or are in the process of getting ready to sign some paperwork to be in Canby are Project Crimson, Blue Ice, and Project Couch. So a couple of things. So all those names are code names. We generally don't release the names of the companies that are looking until we've actually put pen to paper and have agreements with those companies to be coming into town. The whole process sometimes takes lots of cajoling, lots of conversation. Sometimes they're on, sometimes they're off. Hello, thanks for coming. So, for example, Blue Ice is a project that we've been working on for about 5 years. And so that project was originally going to be a 300,000 square foot building in our industrial park. And that company, just as we were literally getting ready to put pen to paper, found a warehouse came available near where they're currently at, which was going to meet all their needs. And so kind of lose out on that opportunity. However, as fate would have it, they had a few problems with the location and the site, and so a portion of that they aren't able to do there in that location. So now all of a sudden, because we did our due diligence, we've kept in contact, here we are, we now might end up with a portion of this project still coming to Canby, which is pretty significant. Project Crimson, this one would have been a great project to land in Canby. This is a local company, we'll say very local, just have expanded and have outgrown their facilities, their distribution center, their manufacturing area, and they narrowed it down to 4 locations, Gresham, Happy Valley, and 2 possible locations in Canby. So they're an employee-owned company, and so after talking with the employees, looking at drive times, distribution pieces, they felt that Canby was, quote-unquote, a little too far out there. And so, unfortunately, both of our locations were crossed off the list. So you win some, you lose some. It happens. But within, I think, 2 weeks of that news, or even less than that, the state came back and said, hey, we have 3 more leads that are interested in Canby. Would you be interested in putting together prospectuses for these businesses? So they come and they go, and we regroup and we go after what's next. If at any point you guys have questions, it's a small enough group. We don't have to wait till the end. Throw your hand up and ask away. So the three buildings that are under construction right now, so the top one there on the left is Premier Gear. They are just that. They do gears for a whole lot of different projects and machinery. They were a company that was in Northwest Portland. They were being encroached on by all the development there in the Northwest and really had no plans of moving until a developer came and said, what would it take? And they said, I don't know, give us a number. Well, the number was big enough for them to say, okay, we'll go find someplace else to do our business. And so they've got a great building going in, and that's going to be a big investment in our industrial park. OC Reimers is building a flex space building, so they're going to have, I think, up to four bays where they'll be able to, you can adjust the space from 1,500 to 7,500 square feet. So that'll allow some of our businesses that are growing to be able to have space to move up into something a little bit more flexible. It's considered more of a light to medium industrial, so so home-based businesses are, maybe they've got property in their barn and they've outgrown it, and this could be a great location. And then the BE group is kind of the same thing, so expandable space for the industrial park. A couple of new businesses that we've had come into town. So Rudnick Electric Signs. They've already done a couple of the signs for some of the new businesses here in town. They've been a great partner so far. STA, so they signed the contract with the Canby School District. And so for them to be here, they had to put in a bus barn and a building, and they chose right there in that corner, just past the apartments there on Sequoia as you head into the industrial park. And then Troutman Art Glass, new business, and just as the name says, they actually do lots of different colored art glass for art projects or art pieces for all over the world. So some expanding businesses. So the Cascade Engineering Technologies, they do titanium airplane parts, and we're not talking Boeing 747s. We're talking some other high-grade airplanes that you might hear flying overhead. But they expanded their building, and I think there's conversation of even an additional expansion for them. Their business, they make airplane parts, have to truck them to Seattle for a glazing process, and in that, there's that risk of damaging the parts, both going there and coming back. So they're looking to try to maybe bring that glazing process in-house for their business. OBC Northwest, an ag supply company that's down off of Berg Parkway over there by S.R. Smith. And so they expanded their big building. And then Bowen and Oldcastle, so they're in the industrial park. So if you were to come out of Fred Meyer and head into the industrial park straight ahead, you've got Kendall Floral in the corner, and you make that corner, they're like one of the next buildings there. But they make they make small and medium to large inserts for the ground for power and whatnot. So those big plastic, really the big plastic utility pieces you see in the ground in housing developments and whatnot. That's what that's what Oldcastle does.
Does Pioneer Pump stabilize? Starting to grow?
Pioneer Pump has stabilized. They're still doing really well. I don't know if they're growing quite as much as they were, but they still have quite a bit of our industrial park over there, and they're still, bringing in salespeople all the time. And so I don't know if they're quite going through the rapid growth that they've been in years past, but they are definitely still a major player worldwide. So downtown, big thing, Canby Utilities moving. Did you guys know that? Yeah, so Canby Utility is building a brand new office building out off of South Redwood, so just past the fire station where that whole old hazelnut tree field used to be. So it's a two-phase project, so they're building their new admin building, and then behind it they'll eventually move in all their trucks and equipment down from the near Public Works and add it to their property there. But really, that's probably the biggest change downtown is the new Dahlia building. Just want to make sure everyone knows What you see on the top is what it's going to look like, not the yellow, has been talked about on Canby now. That's fire paper versus brick. We're doing the brick. So I just want everyone to know that. We'll have retail and office space on the first floor, and then 3 levels of studio and 1-bedroom apartments. So they're already starting leasing for the retail piece, and I believe they're already advertising for the studio 1-bedroom apartments. So there'll be 69 apartments that we're bringing in downtown, and it's part of one of our pieces when we're looking at downtown and what it's doing in terms of growth and how do we maintain it and keep it energized, is we needed to bring people downtown. So that was a big opportunity for us to do that. So the developer almost took over the entire block except for the Oliver Insurance Building. So they are building this building. They're going to renovate the old City Hall and the PD, old PD. And then eventually, right now, they own Canby Utility Building. So once Canby Utility moves out, they'll renovate that and lease that space as well. So behind it will be 43 parking spots. So not exactly a 1-for-1 with the apartment. And then the rest of it will be parking on the street. So I'll touch on that here in just a second, because that has been kind of a big topic of conversation. So the impact on parking. So we did a parking study a number of years ago. We are aware that there is the potential for some problems maybe with parking in the future. We are prepared for that. We're not being so Pollyannish that we don't think that there may be a problem. We're not making a problem. We're taking a proactive wait and see. So if that makes any sense. I mean, meaning that we've got a plan, we have ideas that we would put into place to help with the parking aspect. But right now, is there a parking problem? No. Could there be? Probably. And so that's why we went and did the study a couple of years ago to understand what impact, if we did a building like the Dahlia, what would that do? If we maxed out our retail space downtown, what would that do? So you can see we've got, is this a laser? Oh, look at that. So, you know, you can see the amount of street parking that is and parking spots around the block here. We've got parking along the building here for, you know, what's Gwynn's and then the iPlace and the chiropractic office. Wells Fargo also has a parking lot here as well as over here. And then what's that? Parsons building, which is for sale, has parking along here as well. So, like I said, we're not saying that there isn't going to be a problem. We're just taking more of a wait and see. Let's see what actually happens. And if you talk to a couple of the businesses, they'd love to see a parking problem downtown. So I think a lot of the things that we can do to mitigate it and whatnot. If you're a business owner, don't park right in front of your business. I mean, that's, I'm just going to be honest. Don't park in front of your neighbor's business either. You know, park out away. I know with the opening of Gwynn's here in the mornings, his crew, which his whole family, they park right down in front of the old library because that's frees up all the parking spots that are right there in front of his business. So that's kind of the parking situation. Questions, thoughts, comments? Mr. Savory.
Well, I think that you may not have a parking problem, and it'll get a little bit worse once the Dahlia is completed, if indeed they can fill the retail space. And then I think the bigger problem is going to be about 10 years down the road, because your own traffic people, I think it's DKS, is that what it is?
Correct.
Is anticipating an increase in the population of Canby from its current 17 to 18,000 folks to about 32,000 folks in about 10 or 12 years. I can't remember which number they threw out at us at the planning commission.
will touch upon that, yes.
I was hoping that you would.
Yep. So additional changes downtown. So like I was saying, the City Hall building and the old PD are available. So if you know anyone that's looking to bring a business to town, and they're great locations for, I don't know, a brew pub, a restaurant. I know within the last couple of weeks, I did meet a new potential person that's interested in City Hall for a business. I won't say what, but it tasted pretty good. And then the PD, also another potential restaurant opportunities, looking at that right now as well. This was kind of just some renderings from the developer on what could be done, kind of what they're envisioning for the old PD. So they're looking at opening up the windows, the outside a little bit. Inside, there's some beautiful old timber beams in the ceiling. And so right now, there's a big dumpster out front, and they're starting to, clear that out and try to expose those. Oh, I need to talk, sorry. Is that what Gordon was, sorry, TV land. I'll do better, sorry, Gordon. So yeah, so that's the, what they're looking at for the old PD. The old library space, so we recently just signed a deal with T5 Equities, so they're going to move in, renovate that space, turn it into office space, as well as some additional, like smaller offices and potentially some restaurant and retail within the inside of that. And that's going to begin, I think, this summer or fall. So our facade improvement program continues to be alive and well. So the Kiwanis Thrift Store did one. The Lauren Bell Law Firm downtown, they've done their building, and there's still some more to go. And then PNR LLC is doing some upgrades to some on 4th Avenue, like their storage. They own a storage place, and so updating the business area and the garages along the street there. Some new businesses downtown. I think we met the Book Nook. So they're brand new, so definitely go by and check that out. La Divina Providencia. Had to practice that one for my presentations. But they took over the old liquor store location, so Hispanic market. And then Gwen's Coffee House, which has been doing very well. So opportunities, we know. So Parsons is available, so that's for sale. Holly Mall has some openings, and we're working on them to do a facade improvement program here. That's been kind of ongoing, and then we have some open storefronts with the Graham building. More downtown news and events. The Canby Independence Day celebration continues to grow every year, and that's just been great. I think, Sarah, Councilor Spoon, you are on that committee, yes? And so that's continuing to be a big event, and that is growing. Our big night out, our street dance, so we'll be doing it's 3rd year of this summer, 4th year, and that's just exponentially growing every year. So that originally it started with just a couple businesses said, we need to do this in downtown. They've tacked it on to Canby's big weekend, and it's just continued to grow, and I think there's plans for additional music throughout the weekend. I think Cutsforce is looking at a big, giant barbecued chicken feed. Yeah, so definitely some things growing there. And then our Light Up the Night, so that's the Christmas tree lighting at Way Park. We had tremendously great weather the last couple of years, so we've had amazing turnouts for it. So that's been a fun event. I like Christmas lights, and so I've been on our Main Street manager and our Public Works to put in more lights. So that's why I might have a problem this year at the budget. We'll see. A couple new restaurants in town. I butchered this earlier, but Chapala Express, very good tacos if you are looking for a new taco joint. Cascade Pizza, Roxy's Hawaiian, Los Dos Amigos, Schmitza Pub and Grub, and then Jimmy John's. Has everyone tried all of these yet? Some, yeah. All right. Yes, that's over by the high school. It's over there by Dave's Pharmacy, and yeah. So housing. As Mr. Savory talked about, there's been a little bit of housing added in Canby, and it sounds like more on the way. So first off, apartments. Maybe you've seen the Sequoia Grove complex that went in. That was 174 units that went in, so gated, pool, clubhouse, definitely market rate apartments that went in. We've got Trail Crossing, which is going to be beginning here in the spring, and that's, I believe, over off of Township. No, Territorial. I'm looking at my planning commissioners. Yes. The Dahlia we talked about downtown, and then the Darren Monin and his team just completed a couple of duplexes and triplexes as well. So have added or will be adding a total of 306 apartments in multifamily development, which has been definitely a need in our community. The Dahlia we talked about, so downtown, 69 market rate apartments, balconies, appliances will be provided, so very much move-in ready. I know that they've been working a lot with, I want to keep saying Canby Telecom, but that's not Canby Telecom anymore, but they've been working with them to make sure that they're running high-speed internet to that building as it's being put in. So definitely right there at the forefront. Emerald Garden Townhomes, right over there by the fairgrounds. Those are going in. I think 3 of the triplexes are in place, and then they've got, I think, plans for 3 more, and then potentially the land around it as well coming up. So those are available now. New housing, Northwood Estates. So they have on the north end of town there, so they've gone through phases 1 and 2. 3 is starting to get underway and starting to fill, and I believe that there's plans for a phase 4. Caitlin's Place is relatively new, just kind of off the north side of town there, off of North Oak. Small 6-lot subdivision that's gone in there. Feist, so down off Southeast 13th. So Feist Family Farm is, they're adding a couple of lots to the back there that are under construction. And I think they're kind of 1 or 2 offs for a couple of the developers here in town. So Timber Park, that's on the docket. That's out Southeast 13th. So that's going to be 105 lots. Northwood Estates, that phase 3, that's going to be 21. Feist Editions 6 and 7, 36 in there. Caitlin's Place is 6. Tan Oak, which is has property for sale, so those will be for builders to pick up if they're interested. And then Feist 8 and 9, those are going to be, so we have a total of 236 right now in the pipeline that are already planned and ready to go. Yes. Yeah, so I'm not sure if it's being picked up at home, but so the question was about the schools and do we measure the impact on what's coming up on that? And we do. We work very closely with the school district in terms of what that's going to look like in terms of, how many students are they anticipating? What does that look like? And so recently there was an Ackerman group that was meeting as to whether or not they were going to need to open up Ackerman Junior High, and based on that meeting and the study that was done, Ackerman, they won't need to. There's still enough capacity, they believe, at Baker Prairie to be able to handle the influx of students. With conversations with, now this was probably about a year ago, with the principal at the high school, Principal Dinza. They have the capacity to take on high school students. In fact, we just heard that their enrollment is actually down at the high school. And so the challenge that we're having with housing is that a lot of the new housing that's coming in, that's single-family homes, are 450 at a starting point. And that's kind of out of reach for some that are younger families. I'm getting mixed reviews coming out of the elementary schools in terms of what their capacity is right now. I'm hearing large class sizes at some of the schools. I think more of the ones in town versus like 91 and Karis. But again, it's kind of a mix mash there. So does that help answer that question? Yeah. Yeah, we have to. We just can't build ad nauseum and not take that into consideration. So, and it's always an interesting conversation about classroom sizes. And I remember when I was in 4th, 5th, and 6th grade, there were still 30 kids in my classroom, and that was a while ago. So it's hard to, what's the max is, it's hard to say, so. Absolutely. No, we really can't, yeah. Seth?
Yeah, with these developments, I know that there's been a lot of concerns among citizens about the increasing traffic safety, traffic noise. What citizen input has been particularly helpful, and is any of it being taken into consideration?
Well, we do take the input. What's being considered, I think it depends on who you talk to. I've had a number of conversations with our planning, well, we've had a couple. We need more in terms of traffic. I sit on, there's a regional transportation act, so Area Commission on Transportation for the Portland metro area that I sit on. And a lot of what we're seeing traffic-wise is because 99 is a popular alternative to I-5 and 205. And so we take that into consideration. We are looking at those pieces. We need to look at them more in greater detail. 99 is becoming, widely used. We talk about, those of you that follow the city know about the Birch bumps on Birch Street and we call it the North Side bypass, which is territorial. Former Councilor Coleman lives over there, and he's been instrumental in trying to get speeds lowered along there. So, yeah, our traffic safety committee has been very busy these last 4 years trying to look at all the different pieces to that. I know we're taking that into consideration with new developments. I think we've got one coming up, I think on next Wednesday, that we're going to be looking at that wants to increase some of the density to their plan. And so what does that mean for that part of town? So we have to take that into consideration, especially when we're dealing with roads that take wear and tear, and we've got to pay for those.
Traffic safety, the number one concern among citizens, or are there other concerns that you say are pressing?
Well, I'm going to look to our traffic safety chair, and maybe he can add to what I'm about to say. I think it's more, I think it's a split between, I think there's pockets of safety issues. Like right now in our traffic safety committee, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Coleman, but we have more representation on that committee on the north side of town than we do. We have one person from the south side, correct?
We're actually
Looking to add another one. And so there's been a lot of focus on the school zones in terms of speed signs, crosswalk signs, et cetera. This spring, summer, we're going to be redoing South Ivy between 99 and 13. And so that's going to add sidewalks, bike lane. It's just going to really improve that stretch along there, which is way overdue. And then we'll take that over. That'll no longer be a county highway. We'll own that. That'll be our responsibility going forward. So there are those kind of pockets. I think a lot of what I hear mostly is traffic. It takes me, a long time to get from, the east side of town to the west side and vice versa, depending on the time of day when I'm coming through. Yeah. Clint, did you want to add anything?
Well, I was just going to say one of the things that's been really good is as big developments come along, a lot of times traffic studies are done, really elaborate ones. We have some very robust
sharing that piece so that I can set up my next slide. So before we move out of the whole housing and development conversation, so wanted to touch upon the couple of development pieces that have gone on recently and what's coming up in terms of conversation that the council will be looking at very soon. So, get my laser. Oh, it doesn't work. Well, so we just approved this a week ago. So this development, this is all on the south end of town. So this is the South Ivy master plan for this area. So this is between Ivy and Elm Street, and on the north is 13th. So this is kind of around Hope Village. So the two areas, so this is being done in like two pieces. So we just did approve the master plan, did an annexation, and addressed some zone pieces to this. So in the upper left-hand corner, so what you see kind of, I'm going to move away from the microphone. We'll see the left half of the screen that we're looking at here. So that's the piece that was just added and annexed in the last week. So that's going to be a phase that's going to be developed. South here, this middle section, that's all going to be coming to us next month to look at in terms of annexation, and then and potentially, I think we're looking at maybe, I'm going to look at Laney in terms of potentially some zone pieces, yes? Yes. So whenever we're looking to annex large pieces of land into the city, it has to go through a design strategy, a design piece. And so the developer that's doing the left side there did the whole concept plan for all the property owners here, just to kind of get an idea of what it could look like. Where would we put roads, water, power, sewer, all the fun stuff that make the city run, and then what's the best way to maximize the land in terms of housing development. So that's what we're looking at in this way. So the blue on the south end, that's the bottom edge of our urban growth boundary. The green is part of the Emerald Necklace Trail that we've been working on for, almost 20, 30 years, I think, to get around Canby. And so that was part of the plan, and so that's part of the land dedication in this development is for that, the little park there in the middle, and then the trail down that southern beltway of the city. Questions on this one? No? So this one here, we've had a couple of record-setting nights as a council. I think the longest meeting we've had was, on the books was like 11:05. Well, then we changed that and we did 11:45 back, what month are we in now, February? That was January. Was it December? And then, then we had one that went to 12:15. So, and all of those have all been about land use and development and what's going on and what are we doing. So this section here in the green at the tip there, that's the end of North Maple. That's the 7-acre development at North Maple. So we had that come in, December. Was that January? Yeah, so they're blurring. So that's going to be 22 single-family homes up there on the tip there by just past the country club. So the owner of that's going to develop that and start building homes up there. So those are going to be lot sizes of, I think the lowest or smallest one is about 8,500 square feet, and the largest one is 16,000 square feet. So that's what the developer and the landowner wanted to try to do to fit in there, and so that was a plan that came to us. And again, lots of very good dialogue from the neighbors around there and concerns about what is that going to do to North Maple in terms of the street, widening it, what do we need to do, public safety. So we back to the public safety piece of that. What is that going to look like? How do we accommodate that? Because to the left of that, on that side, that's all farmland. That's Monacuco farmland. So when we look at that going, where is Canby? Most of Canby's growth over the next 20, 25 years, to be honest, is going to be south and to the east. Though there's this large swatch of land up here in the north, and that's right now all farmland. So it all depends on kind of what those families up there are going to want to do with their farmland in the future. So there's that one. So this one, so this is the North Redwood neighborhood. So just on the south end of there is, so you picture Fred Meyer, Carl's Jr. right here at the bottom of the page. The collection of kind of duplexes and row homes right there. And then this is all the stretch along here that is being worked on in terms of been master planned. We're looking at the annexations of that coming into play. That's developments coming on that piece. And so that right now, we haven't even factored that development in yet into the housing numbers that we have coming. Same with the North Maple piece, the 7 acres, the one on the south end. Those are numbers that we haven't even tabulated yet in terms of housing counts. So part of what we need to do as a city land use wise is to make sure that we have a 3-year buildable supply of land. And so right now with these additions, I think that barely touches, 2 years of buildable lands. If I remember correctly I'm going to look at Chair Savory of the Planning Commission. Yeah. So there's still, and these are in the works. So these are another, couple hundred homes that we're looking at being added here to Canby over the next, it could be 3-4 years.
What's the likelihood for it?
That is, I believe that's highway commercial. Yes.
Is there anything in the works to better connect Canby to everything?
The short answer is yes. The long answer is it's been in the works for about 20 years now, maybe 25. So yes, there's the John Williams Bridge. So John Williams was city planner for a long time here. And so there was the plan to take Berg Parkway and run that where you see Walgreens and whatnot right now. That was supposed to go, and there's the vision is a bridge over the train tracks over that gully to swing through and connect into 3rd, run out past the police station, go over the river, and then make a run into Knightsbridge and Arndt Road to try to connect that way. So back when it was first proposed, I think the price tab was teens of millions. Now I think the last one I heard was north of 30. So it is in the works, and we actually, the last 2 years with conversation with the county, actually got them to move it up on their transportation plan list, which is great. But we're behind I-205 expansion and the Sunset Corridor Phase 3. So it did not, and it didn't flag the 205 piece south. I mean, it got, I think, Foster Road to 84, but nothing through this bottom part of Clackamas County, and that's, Yeah, not much. And so that's a lot of, in the short session, there's talk of them doing some tweaks. I don't know what that's going to look like. It's hard to say. And then funding wise, because there was no, because 205 was not put on there in terms of conversation pieces, there's been little funding dedicated to any planning or development of 205. So then that leaves it to the county to figure out what it's going to do. And so involved very heavily right now in a number of the conversations they're having about, I think they call it value pricing, so, or congestion pricing. So you're looking at, there's conversations of tolling, which we think we have a problem on 99E now. Wait till that goes in and 99E becomes a bigger bypass than it is. And then there's also conversation of a vehicle registration fee increase, though it is an election year for 2 of the county commissioners, so I don't think there'll be much conversation between now and November, based on what I'm hearing from some of them. So that's the long and short of that, yeah. So some other accomplishments for the city of Canby. So we were awarded for the first time the Distinguished Budget Presentation Award, which is great. We've gotten other state budget awards in the past, but this was a first time we've been awarded this one, and it's pretty excited about that. Our Heritage and Landmark Commission, which used to be the Historic Review Board, they've been busy. They've been doing a lot of things here in Canby around history, the heritage of Canby. So we're looking at, we've just put into place a heritage trail. In fact, Mr. Varwig and I, we walk a couple mornings a week. And so, you know, on the buildings, it's got the placards and whatnot and what the building, the history of the building. And the goal is to have a really nice walking tour of Canby in that regards. Baker Prairie Cemetery, they've gone through now and repaired headstones, cleaned them, cleaned up the park. You know, again, that's where our founders are buried, and so trying to create a better looking tourist attraction. And then coming this spring is the Women's Heritage Trail. So kind of going through and touching on all of the women that shaped and made Canby and had a huge impact on Canby. So that'll be coming up on March 22nd, so definitely be on the lookout for that. Canby Fire District and the Police Department, just to touch on a couple of things there. So we are currently I don't remember the name of the magazine, but we're just rated the 6th safest city in the state of Oregon, behind Sherwood, Lake Oswego, and I think Junction City. And I don't remember, there's maybe 1,200 people in Junction City, so, but 6 is pretty good. I'd like to be maybe in the top 5, but we'll work on that. Canby Fire, their major accomplishment has just been that with the addition of the new engine, which you see pictured here, another ambulance, that we've been able to decrease our insurance rating from, I think we were at 6 down to 2. So with response times better and improving, that's lowering the insurance rates on homes and businesses in Canby. So that's been pretty great. And both agencies are fantastic. We've got, I think there's 5 or 6 new firefighters on team, and we've just recently added 3 new police officers to replace some retirements that have come up in the PD. But both are very engaged in the community and out and about. So things on the horizon for the city of Canby. We did make an investment in the parks, so we passed a $5 park maintenance fee here in Canby. So that's going to hopefully add 1 to 2 full-time parks maintenance people, and then 1 to 2 seasonal. So we'll see how that goes out. That'll all depend on what actually starts to come in. So a couple years ago, the city took a look at the budget, and we had to make some cuts, and we made cuts in park staff. So that meant that we had to prioritize our parks and what got attention and what didn't. And so our heavily used parks like Waite Park, Legacy, Canby Community Park, they garnered all the attention. And so some of the outlying parks were neglected. And with that, neglect came now deferred maintenance that we've got to get caught up on. So if the council's made that decision, if we're going to add parks, because we've got parklands that we've got dedicated, but we haven't done anything with, that we've got to take care of what we've got. So we'll see what the $5 does, if that is able to help us. There is a sunset factor to it, so once that comes back around, we'll see what the council decides to whether sunset it, reinstate it, put it out to the voters, I'm not sure. So, but that's kind of what we're looking at right now for that. Talk about roads. So one of the challenges that we're having is that we've got to figure out another way in and out of our industrial park. So right now, Sequoia Parkway and Haynes Road are, well, I guess you go out the south way down southeast 13th, but trucks generally don't like speed bumps and they don't like school zones. And so right now with what's being planned in our industrial park, if we don't address getting out of the industrial park, ODOT won't allow us to do any more businesses in the industrial park, because basically Sequoia Parkway will be, Sequoia and 99 will be what classified as a failing intersection, meaning that there's just too much traffic for that to withstand the development. So we're looking at a couple of different options. One is, it's just referred to as Otto Road. If you go out to the industrial park, you can see it. It's an overgrown road that can tie into 99 in one of two locations, and so we are looking at that as a possibility. That would require state transportation funding. That would be us looking at how do we do that with our own funding pieces. That is in the urban renewal district, so we maybe could use part of that as well. So it all depends on what that's going to look like. Additional road improvements. So I talked about South Ivy development. That's going to be going on. That'll be a great improvement. Right now, the city of Canby has roughly, I think, 3.4 miles of county roads in the city limits. So if the road is not 99E, which is the state, and it's a cruddy road, more than likely it's probably county road. We'll blame the county for a lot of things. We are spending, coming up here this summer, close to about $1 million on repaving projects coming up. And so that's just based on our continued maintenance plan. So that's kind of curb to curb, fresh asphalt, fixing any collapsed areas and whatnot that's going on that piece. Questions, comments? No? We're doing a lot in terms of the tourism. You saw the pieces with the Heritage Trail and the things that we're doing in that regards. We're in the middle of doing a new Visit Canby website that's kind of tying into a number of other cities that have a very similar theme across the state. So it's currently in beta test right now, meaning that they've turned it over to people like our city councilor, Tim Dale, who's kind of a computer guru. We'll call him a guru. He calls himself a geek, but so he does a good job beta testing this stuff. And then we're in the midst of a hotel study. So last time we did a hotel study was just probably the beginning of the economic downturn. And we were told, nah, you don't need a hotel because there's vacancies in Wilsonville and Clackamas and you don't need it. And so we're revisiting that again because of the growth of our industrial park and the area in general. And we've had a number of the industrial park businesses ask for something like that. So we're investigating what are the possibilities. So in the not too distant future, a couple of pieces. So we started recently doing a retreat with the council to talk about just kind of key topics, key areas. Housing, affordable versus affordability is a big conversation we had last year. We're still having it. I've been involved with a couple of county conversations about housing, affordability, what does that mean? There's a new phrase, they're calling it the missing middle. So there's housing development occurring at the lower end, so workforce housing, low income housing, And then we're seeing a lot of the new housing going in that's on the higher end, so 400, 450, 500. There's not a lot in that middle bandwidth. So if you're looking in that 200 to 400 range, there's not a lot available. And it doesn't seem that there's a lot being built. So I've had a number of conversations with a couple of developers just to kind of get an idea of like, well, how do we get there? And so I think there's some solutions or some course corrections that can help. It's a statewide issue. It's not just the Willamette Valley and Portland. Salem's going through it. Dallas, Oregon is going through it. I'm talking with the mayors in Redmond, in Lapine, and in Prineville. They're all going through a housing shortage. So we'll see. Going to be asking the city council to take into consideration joining the county and doing a housing needs assessment, just to kind of determine what are our needs and what do we want to get involved in. We as a city can't, it's hard to do low-income housing because we don't have the funds to do that, so that's the state and county getting involved. There are communities that they don't want to do low-income housing. Happy Valley and Lake Oswego are two that kind of come to mind. They've said, our citizens have told us they don't want us to go that route. So there's a balancing act, and where does that fall? Comprehensive plan, so we're looking at opening up the comp plan. So the comp plan is massive. It's a huge undertaking for the city and city staff to take on. It's going to be about 3 years out because we have to budget the funds for it because it's not a cheap process. It involves going to the state. It involves talking about land use, where we're going to grow, how we're going to grow, where are we going to do, what's the zoning going to look like, where do we want to put job growth, business growth, where's that going to go? So it really gets into the nitty gritty, and it's a big project. And that's kind of the where and how will we grow. Last comp plan in growth, conversation was south into the east. Is that still going to be the case? I don't know, we'll see.
How long ago did you do the last one?
We're almost at that 20-year mark. Yeah, so we're about there where we're kind of starting. We've done, so like a couple of the bigger subdivisions that have come in, like the North Redwood piece, that was an addition to the comp plan. So we've had a couple of those in the last, couple of years. Instead of opening the entire comp plan, we tweak here. But it includes your transportation plan, housing plan. It's pretty intense. Park and recreation planning, what is that going to look like? And that's a greater conversation truly than just what parks do we have that we don't have filled, but what do we want to do for recreation? Do we want, many of you may or may not know or are familiar with CAPRD, so the Canby Area Park and Rec District. So that's like another overlay to Canby. Do they play a part in it? Do they not? Is it going to be the city? What is that going to look like? So that's another huge conversation we're very much in the infancy stages of. Chuck.
This park fee that's been added to our bill here, who is all involved in that? Every homeowner, businesses, or how many people are involved in that?
So the park fee is being assessed, the $5 park fee is being assessed monthly to all all homes, apartments, duplexes, runs the gamut of dwellings and all businesses in Canby.
And how many would you estimate that costs? That's quite a bit of funds coming in, awful funds. And you're going to use all that funds for this park?
So, great question, Chuck. And that's why the first bill just went out, and Sarah, you and I talked about this recently, and we thought the dollar amount was going to be roughly annually. Do you remember off the top of your head? 700. Yeah, Laney, do you recall off the top of your head at all? I think it annually was going to generate about $300,000 a year, which really does only cover 2 full-time people and maybe 1 seasonal person each year. So by the time you look at staffing, benefits, and then whatever repairs that we're looking at needing to be done, because that's a big part of it as well, that I know our city manager, we have a new public works director that just came on literally 2 weeks ago. So they're starting to look at what's the deferred maintenance pieces that we need to do, and what are we looking at in terms of cost. So that's the pieces that we've got to look at. So I know that that's probably not as specific as you'd like, Chuck, but right now we had an idea of what the maintenance was going to look like. But now that we're starting to see the funds come in and we have a public works director, it's really getting into the minutia of what needs to be repaired, how long is it going to take, because a lot of stuff too that Parks wasn't able to do fell onto Public Works. So Public Works was tackling a lot of items that Parks normally did. So now that redistribution of labor is going on, and that's now being taken off of Public Works and putting back on Parks, what is that going to look like? So there's still some things to figure out.
So then the park staff will be a whole new organization, or I'll say separate from what they've been taking care of the parks in the past? Do I understand that?
No, that's a good question, Chuck. So what they'll end up doing is they'll just be taking care of, again, everything that they've been doing in the past. So anything that's city park related. There won't be, is that what you're asking, Chuck? I mean, like, we won't take on anything necessarily new.
Parks and recreation and stuff. Who was taking care of that in the past? Is what I'm saying.
Sorry, the two guys that make up our parks team.
Right. Now, will that be a separate entity?
I got you.
Now, since you've taken on this park?
No, it'll still be the city. It won't. We're not bringing in a different organization to take care of the parks piece. So we're looking at adding headcount to our parks team. So yeah, it'll still be city staff taking care of the parks. The Canby Area Park and Rec District that I was talking about, that is a, think of like North Clackamas Park and Rec District. That's kind of what that group is. They don't have any funding right now. They have a big master plan on their shelf that they want to do, but it hasn't. They've been around since the 70s and have been voted down 4 or 5 times since then. So I don't. That's where we're not sure if we're going to grow our parks and we want to get into things like ball fields and bigger recreational pieces. Is that going to be managed and done by the city, or is it bringing to life an organization like Canby Area Park and Rec District? So right now, it's just the city maintaining our parks. That right now, until we can afford to maintain it, you're not going to see it happen. Like we just added, and I didn't bring this up earlier, maybe it did, or it will come up, the addition of we just had 166 acres donated by the Traverso family along the logging trail. And so that runs south of town. So now that piece, that's all great. It's going to be wonderful when we can get there to develop it, maintain it, police it, make sure it's safe, and all those pieces. Those have to be in place before we even begin to go down that road. I know it's a challenge. I mean, we have lots of, like, the wish list and the want list is huge. It has always been huge. The question is that are we taking care of, there's needs and wants, and then there's the have to do's, depending on who you talk to, right? Government takes care of water, power, sewer, streets, and So where's that line? Where does that become? And then where do those funds come from? So we've made a huge investment in our industrial park, and it's grown to, I think we're well over almost $200 million in assessed value out there. It's, or more. It's amazing what we've done, but that's money that's being right now that we are paying debt off of. Until that's gone, we can't benefit fully from that growth in the industrial park. So once that happens, that'll be interesting to see what decisions get made then and where do the funds go and how does that get managed. So, and I think the sunset on our urban renewal district, I think is 2022, 2023 is that target date, so it's right now it's kind of a, it's going to come up fast, and then what's going to happen with the funds on that? Where do we put it? What do we need to do? How do we prioritize that? Yes, sir.
Well, the voters of Canby have turned, like you said, have turned down establishing parks and rec district here at least 4 or 5 times, maybe 6 as I recall. And I don't know that they are inclined to pass another, do it again. So my question is, have you considered taking the money that you're collecting at $5 per month per entity, the $300,000, and considered jobbing that out to a private sector company that you're not paying benefit, the PERS benefits and all of that sort of thing, health insurance. That's their responsibility, and that's a burden that the city doesn't necessarily take on. That would make your dollars stretch further. Have you considered that?
That has been discussed and that has been considered. My understanding that we've run into since I've been mayor has been we run into some strong opposition from some of our labor groups. So that's part of it. The other piece of it too is I think you need to talk to the 3 people that are lined up here in a row in terms of what can be done at the state level to help, as Sean moves out of the way, of what can be done in that regards at a state level as well. So it has been a conversation. It ebbs and it flows.
Just thinking of ways to make your dollars stretch further.
No, I know.
Get the job done.
Right. Well, and we go back, and so every time a developer comes in, right, we charge there's the system development charges. Well, parks by themselves, it's $5,300 and change. Am I close? Okay. For each dwelling. So when you look at Sequoia Grove Apartments, that was over $1 million in SDCs that they paid. We didn't give them any waivers. We don't do that in Canby. But that's a big chunk of change. In terms of park SDCs, I think we're north of $2 million in our parks SDCs. So to be able to use SDCs, it's about expansion. Now, we can go and absolutely expand our parks. Absolutely. However, how do we maintain it? Which is the challenge that we had with our budget, and that's why we did what we did. And coming out of it, and it was a mixed bag. I mean, some people thought it was a great idea. Some people thought you're nuts. Let the parks suffer the way that they are, and you make do with what you got. So, and I heard it from both sides. So, so yeah, yeah. Any other thoughts on some of these pieces already? Changing faces of Canby. Not only is the landscape changing, but our city staff is going to be changing. We've got a number of city employees that are close to retirement. So over the next couple of years, we're going to see a number of positions swap out. Longtime city employees that know where all the bodies are buried and where all the deep secrets are kept. They're going to go and do other things and live life, and so we're going to bring in new faces. And so you know,
Just to let you know, that the planning commission has passed a resolution that Laney will never retire. And she will not age another day. So just to let you know, she's on board in perpetuity.
she's on board with that one? Oh, okay. Yeah, well, I've seen the list, and I don't know. I should double check. I feel like I got to be like Santa Claus and double check my list. But yeah, well, we've already had a couple of names announced already in terms of retirements, and I mean these are really great people on our city staff, and so those are going to be hard to replace. Regional decisions and their impact, like I said, there's stuff going on at the county. There's stuff going on within Metro. In terms of what they're deciding and what they're looking at and talking about, and that has a ripple effect, even down to us. So we're not in the metro area, under the metro body of government and oversight. It still has an impact on us. So doing the best that I can to keep track and watch that. And like I said, continuing the balance of needs and wants, wishes and hopes and dreams, and that's. I want a splash pad too. My kids would love one. My oldest is now 14. I don't know if it's going to happen before maybe by the time she has grandkids, we'll have that, but, or I have grandkids, or but she has kids, we'll have that dialed in. But those are those things that, you know, we look at. I mean, I don't visit Canby now as often as I used to. I am tagged often, so then forced to go and respond. But like, you know, we had a tough start to the month of February here in Canby. It was not easy. And so there was lots of conversation about, well, where did the kids go to hang out and what do they go do and why isn't the city doing anything? And it's like, we're doing what we can, where we can. We go through and we take a look at where can we remove red tape so that somebody wants to open a business, they can come and open a business. If somebody wants to come and build a teen center, awesome. Come do it. We'll help. I can paint, you know, relatively straight, you know, and we have a teen center in our library that's hardly used, you know, and it's, you know, so it's things like that I get it and I hear it and I understand it, but what's our role and how do we do that? So that was a slide that's empty. And that's what I've got for you. So that's kind of the state of Canby right now and what's going on and what's coming up. Questions, any other questions that you guys might have or something I didn't cover that you're dying to know about? The dog park, the dog park is an interesting conversation topic. Again, that falls in the world. I think the dog lovers of Canby would like to see that be if we do any park development, that would be the first park that we do. So I know that it's in queue. I know that there's been a lot of conversation about it. I do know that what we're looking at is first we got to get staffed and take care of what we got before we add it. So I know we've got groups that are very much interested in volunteering and helping out, and that's great, and we'll totally use them. The question is then once the desire and love of volunteering wears off, then what do we do? So that's the balancing act. So it's there. I know, Clint. I know that's one that's close to your heart as well. So, yeah. What else? What do you guys want to see for Canby? Since you're here, you've come out on a cold Thursday evening. What do you see for Canby? John, that's a loaded deck. You and I need. Yeah, that might be a bottle of bourbon later.
I would love to see some more restaurants. It's kind of sad to see the Canby Station go away. It's a beautiful building, and I'm surprised that it's been vacant as long as it has. So, you know, you can only visit Wild here so many times, and, you know, you got a few other places, but I would love to see some other restaurants.
As would I. Absolutely. And it's interesting. You talk to the owners of both of those restaurants, and they too want to see additional sit-down options in Canby. I do know that, I think in a couple of weeks here, there is somebody that's coming to town to look at the old PD building for that purpose. So I know that there's interest. Canby is it's an interesting piece. You talk to some developers and some restaurateurs, and Canby's, to them, it's not a proven entity. And I don't believe that. You know, we're kind of an island. And then you look at our geography of where we're located. We got rivers on three sides, and you've got hills on the other. We're kind of isolated in some ways. And when you take that 30,000 foot level, we go from 17 to 40,000 people. So the people are there. Now, do I want us to see us necessarily draw in an Olive Garden or a Red Robin? Not necessarily, but you know, somebody that's willing to take a risk and make the investment. It's hard. I mean, restaurants aren't cheap. I mean, it's to do. I mean, just to renovate. Absolutely. Well, it's hard work. The cost, I mean, alone, and that's the interesting piece, right? So, the developer, the Hanlon Group that's developing the Dahlia building and the two buildings, she's willing to work with people that want to go in. I mean, there's a cost savings if they're going to renovate. They know that they want to put a restaurant in the PD, so they're going to renovate towards that end. So they know that that's kind of it's a long-term vision they have for that spot. So it's a perfect location if somebody's willing to kind of put in the time, right? So.
We kind of see what happened when it went. I mean, it's been open for just a short time. I was there 3 times the first week that it was open, and not once did I ever see a door or a person not clear to the door. Because I think when the place to be went away, I think really people really missed that. They're looking for places to sit and connect with people. And I'd love to see them do it here and not just a business in Wilsonville or Oregon City or what have you. And
I agree.
we're members at Willamette Valley Country Club, and, you know, social membership's gone through the roof just because people want another place to eat that's finer dining, you know? So, which is a good thing for a club, but, it just would be nice to have, so I totally get it. But,
Well, you bring up, well, yeah, you talk about, well, I think it's been Elm Street Inn, Couches, Grand Central, whatever. Thanks, you guys, for coming. Appreciate it. Yeah. So when the building was purchased, the plan was they were going to enclose the current patio, add on another patio, like outdoor space, to increase the seating size, revamp the kitchen and make it more usable, and then I think turn upstairs more into like a banquet facility so it's not used all the time. And then there was plans to add an L-shaped building for office space and whatnot, and it was great. We went through and we went and did designs for new streetscape right in front of it. We were going to redo traffic patterns. We were ready to go. We're working on a quiet zone through Canby, so from Elm to Ivy, right? Elm Green, yeah. Well, the train, you know, the safety measures will be put in so the train doesn't have to lay on the horn all the way through town. But to do that, we have to redo that intersection, which was playing into the development of that building. And so, yeah, when all of a sudden it went back on the market, I was like, it's not a bad location. So if you know anyone, there's tons of potential, absolutely. So I think in Canby too as we are a great community, and we will support any business that comes into town that is willing to roll up their shirt sleeves and get involved in the community and support the team, support the schools. But if you don't do that, and you have and then somebody has a bad experience, man, you're all of a sudden almost kind of the black sheep in the community, and you won't last long. And I've seen that happen as well. So it's got to be the right person too, I think, to jump in and do that. So yeah, no, I anytime I go to a restaurant, I'm like, do you know where Canby is? And they're like, nope. Well, let me tell you about it. You'd be great to have, you know, and so we'll see. I think part of it, what was it? I was maybe Sarah and I have been spending a lot of time at Gwen's. It's our office away from our office. Were you and I talking about the Schmitza Pub and Grub and how just you look at the backstop and you go in there on a Thursday, Friday, or Saturday night, happy hour, the late happy hour, it's still standing room only. And so I think you and I were talking with the owners of the Schmitza that their bar is actually busier than the restaurant side because it's a nicer place to go and get a drink and run into people that you know, and it's not as hectic, and I'm not standing waiting like I do at the backstop. So it's coming. I keep saying that, and I truly believe. I mean, when I first ran 5 years ago, it was like it's coming, and it's going to be really cool when it does. It's just getting through some of these hurdles, I think, are key. Yeah. Any other thoughts, questions, opines that anyone want? No? Rooftops bring the restaurants. Yeah. Well, and that's having spent 20 years working in that industry. They're all tiered. You've got your top tier all the way down to like your bottom tier, and your Olive Gardens and your Red Robins are all those tier ones. But they need to know that, you know, are you and your wife going to go to Red Robin if it builds here 3 times a week? Because that's what they need from you. And they need, you know, the Spoon Waffle family of 6 to go at least twice a week based on our head counts. So they're not going to come. So what can we draw here that would meet that, you know, and we're getting there, and we're getting some really fun places to go eat. We just need that next bump up in terms of a sit down. I hear Italian, steak and seafood, a barbecue place. What else have we heard? I mean, those are all, I'll eat any of those. Sushi's coming. Yeah, out there by Fred Meyer, so that's coming. So, yeah, we'll see. Yeah, thanks you guys. Appreciate it. Thanks for recording. That's my city phone number and my email address. If you've got any questions, please feel free to email me, and I'll get back to you as quick as I can, or I'll put you in contact with the right people. So, thanks.